Hello everyone, and welcome to the Set 9 Departed review and deck list. And this one is mainly about the two new cards that Departed got in Set 9. And and if you want to see the full deck list, just feel free to skip towards the end of the video. But I'm going to kind of go through all the cards that are of relevant for people who might be just getting into the game. So if you want to listen to that, just feel free to continue watching. But if not, the deck list is right at the end with my explanation of it. Before we do get to the cards, though, I do just want to give a little warning that the cards can vary, or the deck list can vary, how you kind of want to build it, based on your locals and whatnot. Departed in general is not really considered a meta deck, so this is kind of meant to be not only obviously a tutorial to the archetype, but if you see other variations and you wonder why, there's probably a reason, or someone's trying something. So just saying, the deck at the end of this is not the end all be all final best option. Starting with the strong slash core cards of the deck, these are cards that basically, if you're not running them, you're basically just not running a Departed, attribute deck. We'll go each of them over them individually in a minute, but just from a bird's eye view, we got Demon Lord Ectar, Death's Breath, Grave Desecration, Arcus, Spirited Manager, which is one of the new cards, Tarteus the Tormentor and his Evo, and Poltergeist, which is also one of the new cards. Up first is the big man himself, Demon Lord Ectar, which is what Departed basically revolves around. He's a 7-cost 5/6 follower that has Fanfare and Necrocharge 10. You can select up to 2 Abysscraft followers. That's what the symbol means, just means Abysscraft. That costs 2 play points or less in your cemetery, and put them onto your field, and then give each of the followers on your field +1/+1. If you're a Necrocharge 20, though, you give them +3/+3 instead. And while he's on the field, each Abysscraft follower on the field has Rush, so that also means he himself gets Rush. A small thing I do want to mention is the Necrocharge 10 and 20 is at the moment he enters the field. So if you are, let's say your grave is 11 cards and you resurrect Ectar, the Necrocharge 10/20 check. I know the Necrocharge 20 is lower, but rulings wise, the Necrocharge 10 and 20 check is both at summon. So if you bring back 2 followers, so you're now down to 8 cards, because we're starting at 11 with Ectar. It still sees, when it was summoned, it still sees there was 10, so therefore it will still start summoning the followers. I have the other 2 variants of him on here in case people wonder why there's Lelouch cards. When the card was released, when Demon Lord Ectar was released, he was reprinted as 2 different Lelouch variant alt arts. They're the exact same card. And you can see that atop their name it says Demon Lord Ectar. So as far as building decks, you can still only have up to 3 copies of any of these cards in any way you want. But they just had a promotion where they kind of made 2 different Lelouch arts with 2 different names, but they're all the same card. So in case anyone's confused about that. Up next is the next core resurrection card for Ectar, Death's Breath. It is a 6-cost spell, and you select a follower that costs 8 play points or less, and you from the cemetery, and you play it onto the field, and you give it ward. So he'll be resurrected. You give him ward, and triggers his fanfares and everything. It's just been a staple Departed card since literally set 1. No reason to not run it. Pretty straightforward card. Next up is Grave Desecration, a 1-cost amulet that on Fanfare you mill 2 from your deck to the cemetery, and has an act ability that if you play 2 play points, you tap the card and you put it to the cemetery. You can select a departed follower in your cemetery and add it to your hand. The best case scenario, it be a Demon Lord Ectar, but if you are needing something that's like a 3-cost that normally can't be res, we'll show it later, but like Nicola or Bone Chimera, you can always grab Grave Desecration. The Grave Desecration was also printed at the same time as Demon Lord Ectar, so it also has its own Code Geass variant art that does the exact same thing. And you can see under above Emperor's Command, it says Grave Desecration. So, and you can read the card, it's the exact same card, just different art, different name. But between the 2, again, you can only have up to 3 copies in a deck. Next is the big card from set 9, Arcus Spirited Manager. He is the one that did get the ultimate rare treatment. So these are the 3 different rarities that he can show up. His ultimate rare having like a alt art, the L and SL being the same art. But he's a 2-cost, 5/5 Departed follower. He can't attack enemies, which is honestly fair in my opinion, considering he's a 5-cost or a 2-cost 5/5. That's just insane stats for a 2-cost. And at the start of the main phase, if you're at Necrocharge 10, you summon a ghost, which might not seem like a big deal, but we'll get there. But you can act Bury a Follower, choose one of the following, and you can only activate this ability once per turn. After sacking the follower, you can draw a card, summon 2 ghosts, or bury the top 2 cards of your deck. So he's not an attacker. Well, he manages. That's kind of in his name. And so you normally, like, if you play the ghost, you could just swing with it and then sack it to get one of these other effects. But it's not limited to just the ghost token if you want to sack something else. I've had a few games where I play Haven Amulet and they play spells that banish, followers. So, Ectar is a prime target because without him, basically the deck just doesn't function. So sometimes, you'll play Ectar, resummon Arcus, maybe swing with Ectar into something to at least, kill a tapped follower. And then you can just sack Ectar to just guarantee he's still in the cemetery. And, so you can play him next turn and you can get some other additional benefit. Early on, you're probably going to want to do the bury the top 2 to try to get to Necrocharge 10 or Departed 15 or Necrocharge 20 as soon as possible. But it's really just kind of dependent on the situation. Next is the big man, Tarteus the Tormentor, 10 cost 7/7 follower. He has a passive ability that this card costs 5 less to play if you have at least 15 departed cards in the cemetery, and because of that ability is the main reason why the deck is heavily, if not almost completely, departed. And I say almost because it can never truly, with Tartarus in the deck, it can never truly be fully departed because he himself is not a departed card. But he does evolve for 1. On evolve, you do get to summon a departed follower in the cemetery and summon it, so the main target being Demon Lord Ectar. He does have an act which works from the hand. So the act says, put this card from your hand into the EX area, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, you can reveal a departed card from among them and add it to your hand, and then you bury the rest, which just means mill the rest for people who don't know what bury means. So he's a good early game consistency card despite him being a 10 cost card, and the goal of the deck is at least around the turn, I would say turn 6-ish, maybe turn 7, try to get 15 departed into the cemetery, so at least he is an option that you can res back for Demon Lord Ectar. Ideally, you'd want to wait till you get Necrocharge 20, so Demon Lord Ectar can give him +3/+3, so he becomes a 11/11. And then if you resurrect at least 1 Chris Pumpkinhead, you could make him a 12/12 with Ward as a option. I guess, you don't have to necessarily do that, but just basically his stats get insane for only being a 6-cost card. 5 less to play him, and then the 1 to evo him. So he is just a big, chunky, beefy boy. And if you don't run this card, then you are actually much more free to do whatever you want with your, I guess, Departed deck. You don't have to, at that point, focus on Departed, but Tartarus is just such an enticing card to run in Departed that, vast majority of decks nowadays are just going to be like 95% Departed cards. And the last card from the set 9 is the Poltergeist spell. It is a 1-cost, pretty simple, 1-cost spell that at quick speed, if you want to play it at quick, you bury 2 cards. So ultimately it increases your Necrocharge by 3 because you'll throw Poltergeist into the cemetery, so it counts for itself. And Poltergeist itself is a departed spell, so that will help towards counting towards Tarteus the Tormentor. So just a really good, between either like Tarteus the Tormentor, Poltergeist, or Grave Desecration, with all of them being 1-cost cards, or in the case of Tartarus not being 1-cost, but his act ability is 1-cost. You do have quite a few options on turn 1. The next pile of cards, I tend to just consider the good cards. These are cards that are still pretty much core to the deck, but they just might not be as impactful or such a backbone to the deck in general. So we'll go over them as well, but just to list them off, we got Nicola, Forbidden Strength in his Evo, Forbidden Art, Chris Pumpkinhead in his Evo, and Lesser Mummy. So normally I don't tend to combine different cards into one section to talk about, but Nicola and Forbidden Art are so ingrained with each other that if you play one, you basically have to run the other. So we'll start with Nicola. He's a 3-cost 3/3 follower that on Fanfare you mill the top 2 cards of your deck. You can pay 1 to evolve him, and he becomes a 4/4. And on evolve, you select a Machina card that costs 2 or less in your cemetery, then you put it to your EX area, and it costs 2 less to play for this turn. And you might be like, that's weird that you're running this Machina card that searches for a Machina card, but he is also Departed attribute, so in case you didn't notice yet. But the Forbidden Art card is a 2-cost Machina card, and it just obviously synergizes well with himself, especially, he's got the artwork on there, references him. So Forbidden Art says it's a 2-cost spell that you select an enemy follower on the field and you deal 4. However, if there is a Nicola Forbidden Strength on the field, you deal 6 damage instead. So there's really only 2 options for Nicola to grab as Departed options. The other option is not in the deck because it is just such a mediocre card, and that's Bone Drone. But with how much this deck mills, getting at least 1 Forbidden Art in the cemetery is not that difficult. So it's a viable possibility that you'll just hit it as you're milling during your turns. And up next is Chris Pumpkinhead, a 2-cost 2/2 Departed follower. And he has an ability that triggers at the start of the end phase. If you have Necrocharge 10, you select a follower on your field and you give it +1/+1 in ward and then engage it. And then you can evolve for 1, and on evolve, you bury the top 2 cards of your deck. So the evo is not super impactful, but, helps with the Necrocharge at least. He will be, I want to say, probably the one of the most consistent choices when resurrecting from Demon Lord Ectar as well. Next up is Lesser Mummy, a 2-cost 2/2 Departed follower. It has Fanfare, Necrocharge 10, give it Storm, and then just a little bit of explanation on what Necrocharge is, which just basically means, 10 or more in Cemetery. It can evolve for 1, and on strike, you summon a Ghost token. So just a good option for the late game with Storm. And then with the Ghost token, if you resurrect, let's say, it and Arcus with Demon Lord Ectar, and you swing, you summon a Ghost token, you could swing with the Ghost, and then with Demon Lord, or with Arcus, you can just, get something else, and, whether it's draw, mill 2, or I guess in that case, 2 Ghosts, because you have 3 followers on the field. So just a good, option in general, both in like the early and late game. So next is the niche collection, but honestly, there's only like a few I'd actually consider niche, but there was just not enough space to kind of put some of these cards in the previous section. The ones that I would also arguably say are in the good cards category is Soul Conversion, Bone Chimera, and Mischievous Zombie. Undy Resentment, I feel like there's a lot of debate with the card, so I'll kind of leave that up to your discretion. But otherwise, you got Azazel as well. So let's get through them. First up is the classic Soul Conversion. It's a 1-cost spell with Quick, and you select a follower on your field, you destroy it and draw 2. So the best choice usually being a Ghost, whether you summon it with Lesser Mummy or an Arcus or Mischievous Zombie, which we'll get to shortly. This card is probably, even though I have it under the niche category, this is like absolutely just a staple for Departed decks. It's just I can only list so many cards in a slide, so just bear with me on that, but don't freak out too much on me that it's in the niche category. It's honestly probably one of the best draw spells in the game. Maybe Unleash the Nightmare might be like the next best for bats, but just solid card, run 2 or 3 copies of. Next is a card that I would actually put under the niche card category, which is Azazel. It's a 7-cost 6/6 follower, but if you have 10 cards or more in the cemetery, he does cost 3 less to play, so he costs 4. He does have Bane, and on Fanfare, each opponent discards a random card. You can evo it for 1, and he still retains the Bane, and on evolve, everyone's defense is set to 10 except for your own. And I say every leader because this is like a staple card in Glory Finder, which is the commander equivalent for Shadowverse. So pretty strong in that format. But yeah, there's so much. One argument for running him is you do so much work early on trying to just mill yourself and do your own objective that you probably aren't really interacting with your opponent's life points anyways. So as this all helps at least get it down to 10, and then now that it's down to 10, you could like play a few lesser mummies. They get +3/+3 from Ectar, so they're 5/5s. If you Evo one, it's a 6/6, and then with the other mummy being a 5/5, that's 11 right there, not including the one ghost to make it potentially 12 damage. So he kind of helps potentially setting up your late game. Most people, I would say, if you do run it, usually the traditional number is about 2 of the base and 1 of the Evo, because generally speaking, having more than 1 Evo is kind of pointless because your opponent probably won't gain too much life anyways. Even if they go up by like 11 or 12, usually it's not a whole lot. Arguably, maybe in this format, you might be able to run 2 Evos because Earth Rune is a very common deck right now, and with all the gingerbread houses running around, they could potentially get up to 9 health because each gingerbread increases their health by 3. I know in Japan it was limited to 1, but I've not seen anything about it being limited to 1 in English right now. So maybe arguably you could make that argument, but just saying traditionally prior to this set, it was usually 2 base and 1 Evo. Next up is Undy Resentment, which is a 2-cost quick spell that you can select an enemy follower and you deal 3 damage, and then you mill the top card of your cemetery. It is a departed attribute card, so really good synergy with that. You get potentially up to 2 more, departed to help get to Tarteus the Tormentor's 15 and just increase your necro charge in general. The card's a little hotly debated if you do want to run it or not. Generally speaking, 2-cost spells that only deal 3 damage is not great. And yeah, it mills 1, but the mill is like, it's 1 card. If it milled like maybe 2, it could be arguably like really good. But milling 1 just seems kind of meh. I personally like it, but the other card that people argue with is Whispers of a Dream, which we'll get to in the honorable mentions category. The only problem with Whispers of a Dream, well, actually 2 problems. The first problem is it's not a departed attribute. The second problem is I've had games where I am like just short of having like a necrocharge count or a departed count that I need, and I could, in theory, get to, let's say, the necrocharge count with Whispers of a Dream, but the only followers on the opponent's fields are like 4-cost or higher cards. So you're just kind of stuck in this quasi spot where it's like you think you have an out to get going, but you really don't. Where at least with Undying Resentment, like, sure, the 3 damage might not kill the 4-cost plus follower, but at least you're getting to the play points you need to actually start to do something. And you might even have like other damage dealing spells that could actually finish it off, or a follower on your field that could finish it off, as you could at least just get that 3 damage. So kind of, I'd say test it, see if you like it, see if you don't. At the very least, you do already have the Forbidden Arts spell with Nicola, so it's not like you don't have other damage dealing spells. So give it a shot, see what you think. Next is Bone Chimera. It is a 3-cost 1/1 follower, so subpar stats, but that's okay. On Necrocharge 7, he does get Rush and Bane, so you can easily just have him run into something and just kill it. Fanfare, and you mill the top 3 cards of your deck, so great for milling. He is departed. One thing I noticed with one game I saw being played is, worst case, if your opponent doesn't have any followers on the board, but you have like this Bone Chimera in your hand that you're just like, man, I can't do anything with this, but I still want to mill 3. You could get like a really good turbo turn of milling if you have Arcus on your board, where if you already have Arcus on the board, you just play Bone Chimera, you mill 3, and then just sack Arcus, or Arcus sacks Bone Chimera, and you just mill 2 more. So like you just literally milled 6, which is just like super fast and super good for the deck. This is one card that you could also arguably grab back with like Grave Desecration. He can't be grabbed with Demon Lord Ectar, since Ectar only grabs 2-cost or less followers. But Grave Desecration, if you kind of need something to just kind of kill a high statted follower, you could grab back Bone Chimera. If it's like on turn 5, let's say, you pay 2, grab Bone Chimera, and then just play Bone Chimera and crash it into the follower. So just solid card that has a little bit of downside of not being able to be rezzed, but has just so many good upsides that you can just run it like 2 or 3 copies. Next up is another card that kind of, in my opinion, kind of floats between good and niche, and that's Mischievous Zombie. It's a 2-cost 2/2. Then on Fanfare, you can discard a card, summon a ghost token. If you discard a departed, however, you do get to draw a card. And then his Evo costs 2, and on Evolve, you can choose a ghost on your field and give it Bane, so it could just, the ghost you play, you can get Bane and just run into something to kill it. This card, I kind of have a little bit of mixed emotions about it. Do keep in mind, I just want to circle back around to the Fanfare real quick. Do keep in mind that the discard card is not mandatory. Whenever you see that colon before a cost, that is optional. It is not mandatory. So if you have like a really good really good hand, and you just want to play a Mischievous Zombie and just Evo it for whatever reason, like let's say you have Arcus on the board, Arcus summoned a ghost already, and you just want to play Mischievous Zombie, Evo it, and give that ghost Bane. You could just do that. You don't have to discard a card. Between this card and Lesser Mummy, I kind of feel like they're kind of competing for the same spot. Mischievous Zombie can give you that good cycle early on if your hand's kind of loaded with like some cards that you don't need, or late game if you're trying to at least just get a little bit more necro charge, but you don't want to go too hard by like respawning, like let's say Spartoy Sergeant, or something to that extent. You could always just ditch one card in hand with Mischievous Zombie. So give it a shot. I'm almost debating on like running both, but I could arguably maybe think that Mischievous Zombie might be a little bit better, just because the Lesser Mummy ghosts do require an Evo, and Mischievous Zombie doesn't. But at the same time, I mean, Lesser Mummy just helps deal damage late game that Mischievous Zombie can't. So it's literally just pros and cons of what you want. So give them a shot, see what you think. And the last selection is the honorable mention cards. Most of these are not departed, but they just work really well if you do want to run them. With the exception of Undead King, he is a departed, but we got Dublame, Duke and Dame, Whispers of a Dream, Demonium Punk Devil, Hell's Unleasher, and Undead King. So let's get through those, and then we'll get to the deck list. First is Dublame, Duke and Dame, and his Evo. He's a 2-cost 2/2 follower that on Fanfare you bury the top card of your deck, so you do get a little bit of that Necro charge. You do pay 1 to Evo him into a 3/3. And on Evolve, you select an enemy follower on the field and deal 2. If you're at Necro charge 10, you deal 4. So you can actually probably get to the Necro charge 10 pretty early with Departed. And because he has a 2-cost Abysscraft follower, he can be resurrected with Demon Lord Ectar. So he is a option in that regards as well. So he's not, the only thing holding him back from being an absolute staple in this deck is just the fact that he's not departed. But just like I mentioned, based on my experience with trying out non-departeds, it feels like a very fine line of like roughly around like 8 to 9, non-departed, and it's just like the deck just starts to kind of feel like it's falling apart. So I'd say I did make a deck variant where I had 3 Tarteus the Tormentors and 2 Dublame and 2 Evos of Dublame. With the idea being like, I probably won't see him early game, but at least if I need him to be rezzed with Demon Lord Ectar, he can be rezzed and I can Evo him. So definitely, like, in my opinion, one of the better options on this list in general. Next up is Whispers of a Dream. This is the card that I was mentioning is kind of debated between with Undy Resentment. It's a 2-cost spell that quick, you can select an enemy follower that costs 3 or less on the field and destroy it and bury the top card of your deck. So it's very similar to Whispers of a Dream. If you kind of check back, or not, I'm sorry, not Whispers of a Dream, Undying Resentment. It's very similar to Undying Resentment in the fact that they're both 2, they're both quick, they both mill 1. However, Whispers is a hard kill, while Undying Resentment is deal 3. If this card was a departed attribute card, this card would be insane, but rightfully so, at least from a game design perspective. They did not make it departed. Arguably, you might make a really strong case that this set you might want to run a couple Whispers, just because there are so many very strong 3-cost followers in Dirt Rune. But that's kind of up to your locals and kind of how really super competitive you want to get with it. Even if you do run this in general, Departed is just still not as strong as like Bats. or Dirt Rune. So kind of, I like to kind of play it within like the tier that it's kind of generally meant to be played in. But hey, if this is like the only deck you like and you're going to a locals and you want to try to do, or sorry, if this is the best deck you like and you're going to a regionals, then you probably want to consider running a couple of Whispers. I would say probably not 3, but at least probably a couple. Next up is the classic Demonium Punk Devil. He was used a whole lot before Departed started to become more focused on Departed, and it was more of a Necro Charge deck. But yeah, he's a 2-cost, 2/3 follower that has Ward. He has an act ability that once per turn you can give him Bane, and last words you give your leader 2 life. He was really staple in older sets because Demon Lord Ectar could resurrect him, you get some easy life, or he could get Rush with Demon Lord Ectar and you could give him Bane and then just crash him into a different follower, and it was basically free because you just get the 2 life back from the Bane. So, arguably, if you do want to run him for a little bit more like early game defense, on like turn 2, but still have something late game, you can. But generally speaking, I would say people don't tend to run this card anymore. And our penultimate card is Hell's Unleasher. It's a 2-cost, 2/2 demon with the ability of Act. You tap it and you send it to the cemetery to select a follower that costs at least 3 play points in the cemetery and add it back to your hand. The 2 most probable cards you'll probably grab with this is either Demon Lord Ectar or Tarteus the Tormentor, so you can recur and do more Tarteus the Tormentor turns. It's the only thing holding it back from probably being more of a valid choice is just the fact that it's not Departed, but I could certainly see if you want to kind of still do a slim amount of non-Departeds in the deck other than Tartarus, you could do, your normal 3 Tartarus the Tormentors and then like 2 copies of Hell's Unleasher. At least then at some point you're probably going to get one into the cemetery, so then you can, resummon it at some point to get more recursion for later. But that's kind of up to your discretion and kind of how you want the deck to run. And the last card before we get to the deck list is Undead King. It's a 6-cost, 6/6 follower that on Fanfare you can select up to 2 followers in the cemetery and add them back to your hand. So you can you can grab a whole lot of stuff. Ectar, Tartarus, Nicola's, Bone Chimera's, Arcus, like just a whole bunch of stuff. The only thing kind of holding it back is just how expensive it is and the fact that it just does literally nothing else. But I suppose worst case, if you wanted to Death's Breath back Undead King, so it has Ward at least, while you grab a couple things to prep for later turns, I suppose that is an option. It is very slow though, so I don't want to say it's a totally awesome, good job, move to do. But hey, if you feel like you need a little more recursion, or you feel like you are just milling your Tartarus the Tormentor so much, and you're like, man, I just need the Tartaruses for late game, you can play Undead King and heck, grab 2 Tartarus the Tormentors. The followers don't have to be 2 different followers, so you can grab 2 of the same card if you want. And here's the deck list. If you have watched this whole time, you are awesome. But otherwise, let's go through it. First is the Soul Conversions at 3 copies, Grave Desecration at 2. I kind of have mixed opinions about Grave Desecration. I personally am probably going to try the deck without it. It just, the one slot that it takes up on the board kind of feels bad at some points, and the 2 play points to grab something back always feels like it's just like too much. I almost wish it was only 1 play point instead of 2, but still, that's why I just run it at 2 in this deck list, to at least start with, to see how it feels. At least maybe at 2 it's more if you just see it late game, so you can just grab something back and then like it doesn't feel like it's sitting on the board as long. Up next is 3 copies of Poltergeist, so you get that Necrocharge going. Then Spartoy Sergeants to get more milling. Then you got the Crisp Pumpkin Heads. You got 3 Undying Resentments. You got 3 Mischievous Zombies, 3 Forbidden Arts, 3 Nicolas, 2 Bone Chimeras. Arguably, you could run it at 3, but I only run it at 2 at the moment just because it's not something that can be easily rezzed. You got 3 Death's Breath because absolute staple, needed card for the deck. You got 3 Demon Lord Ectars because he's the man, 3 Arcuses, and then 3 Tartarus the Tormentors. Just all good, core solid cards. With the Evo deck, you've got 2 Crisp Pumpkin Heads, 2 Mischievous Zombie Evos, 3 Nicola Evos, and 3 Tartarus the Tormentor Evos. one thing I don't have here, but I'll just kind of mention, is if you arguably want to put Lesser Mummy in instead of Mischievous Zombie, feel free to, or if you want to try cramming both in, give it a shot. Because Nicola and Tartarus don't tend to be able to be recurred back onto the field with Demon Lord Ectar, you could arguably set those two evos at 2, and probably with Chris you could bump it up to 3. Mischievous Zombie's evo costs 2, so that's a little unfortunate, but you know, if you do need a little bit of bane to kill some big follower, you know, you could evo Mischievous Zombie. But if you do run Lesser Mummy, you're probably going to, whatever you kind of swap around, you probably are going to want to run 3 of its Evo, because you will, you know, play it either early or late game with the Storm. So just kind of giving you some other ideas to kind of flow with as you're kind of thinking of how you want to cook with the deck. So, but I figured at the very least this is a good starting point deck, and then just kind of, you know, how you feel playing, you can kind of adjust numbers and whatnot. So that's it, everyone. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated the video, or you thought it was insightful, or at least a good starting off point, just consider, you know, liking or commenting or subscribing. And have a great day. Peace.